You've been asking for signs, for reassurance, for someone to tell you what to do next, and yet the answer has been quietly arriving the same way every time, soft, subtle, easy to dismiss. That gentle nudge you feel before you overthink, that's not imagination. That's your inner voice trying to be heard. Most people don't ignore their inner voice on purpose. They just learned little by little to doubt it. They were taught to listen outward before listening inward, to trust logic over feeling, to seek permission instead of knowing. And eventually, that natural guidance grew faint under all the noise. Your inner voice doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't panic, it waits patiently, lovingly. Even after you've second-guessed it 100 times, it stays. Because it knows something your fear does not. It knows who you really are beneath the conditioning. Have you noticed how your body reacts when something feels wrong, even if it looks right on paper? Or how relief washes over you when you finally follow what felt true all along? That's not coincidence, that's alignment. That's your deeper wisdom speaking in sensation, not words. Doubt often disguises itself as responsibility. You call it being careful, realistic, mature. But sometimes it's just fear wearing a sensible mask. And fear gets very uncomfortable when intuition starts leading, because intuition doesn't explain itself, it simply knows. Trusting yourself doesn't mean you'll never feel afraid. It means you stop letting fear make every decision. It means honoring the quiet yes inside you, even when the world is loud, especially when the world is loud. That's when your inner voice matters most. There was a time when you trusted yourself completely, before opinions crowded in, before mistakes were used as proof you couldn't be trusted. That trust was never lost, it was only covered, and anything covered can be uncovered with gentleness. In a moment, I'll help you recognize how your inner voice has been guiding you all along and how to hear it clearly again, not through force, not through effort, but through trust. Stay with me. What you're about to remember will feel like coming home. There was a time when listening to myself felt natural and effortless. I did not question every feeling or sensation. I did not ask whether my knowing was correct. I simply trusted it. This inner voice was not something I learned, it was something I arrived with. It guided me gently, quietly, without fear or urgency, like a loving companion walking beside me. As a child, I knew when something felt right and when it did not. My body responded before my mind ever tried to explain. I moved toward what felt nourishing and away from what felt uncomfortable. This was not defiance, it was wisdom. It was my inner guidance, expressing itself through simplicity and presence. Over time, however, I learned that this knowing was not always welcomed. I was taught, subtly and sometimes directly, that listening outward was more important than listening inward. I learned to look to authority, to rules, to expectations. And slowly, the voice within became quieter, not because it left, but because it was interrupted. I want you to know that nothing went wrong in this process. You did what you needed to do to feel safe, loved, and accepted. Doubt was not a failure of character. It was a learned response. When inner knowing conflicted with external approval, many of us chose belonging over truth. This choice made sense at the time. Even as the inner voice grew faint, it never disappeared. It never argued or demanded attention. It simply waited, patiently, lovingly. The inner voice understands timing. It knows when we are ready to hear again. There are moments when this voice still reaches you. You may feel it as a gentle hesitation before saying yes, as a subtle relief when you finally speak honestly, as a quiet discomfort when something looks right on the surface but feels wrong inside. These moments are not imagination, they are memory. The inner voice does not communicate through pressure or fear. It does not shout or insist. It does not overwhelm. It speaks through calm, clarity, through sensations of ease or tension, through a feeling of alignment or resistance. It speaks in the language of the body and the heart. Many people believe intuition should feel dramatic or powerful, yet true inner guidance feels ordinary and steady. It feels like coming home rather than discovering something new. When you listen, there is often a sense of relief, not excitement, but rightness. I have learned that the inner voice is always loving. Even when it guides us away from something familiar, it does so gently. It never shames. It never frightens. Fear belongs to the mind's attempt to control outcomes. Intuition belongs to trust. You may remember moments in your life when you ignored this voice and later wished you had listened. This is not something to regret. It is something to learn from. Each experience taught you that your knowing was real, that it mattered, that it was worthy of attention. I want to invite you now to reflect on times when you followed your inner guidance and felt peace, even if the path was uncertain. Notice how your body responded. Notice the sense of alignment. These memories are evidence. They remind you that you have always known how to listen. The inner voice does not require perfection to speak. It does not withdraw when you doubt it. It remains present through every hesitation, every second guessing, every detour. It understands fear, it understands confusion, and it waits without resentment. There is nothing you need to do to earn access to this guidance. You do not need to become wiser, calmer, or more spiritual. You only need to be willing to notice, willing to pause, willing to listen. I offer you a gentle affirmation now, not as a command, but as an opening. I am willing to listen to my inner voice with love. Willingness is enough. The inner voice responds to openness, not effort. As you begin this remembering, be kind to yourself. You are not learning something new, you are uncovering something familiar. The trust you once had was never lost. It was simply covered by habit and fear, and anything covered can be revealed again with gentleness. This is the beginning of listening again, not through force, not through analysis, but through presence, through kindness, through trust. And as you continue, you will discover that your inner voice has been guiding you all along, quietly, faithfully, patiently waiting for the moment you were ready to come home. There was no single moment when I stopped trusting myself. It happened quietly, over time, through small corrections and gentle redirections. I learned, little by little, that listening outward brought praise and safety, while listening inward often brought confusion or disapproval. And so I adjusted, not because I was wrong, but because I wanted to belong. I began to notice that when I followed rules without question, life felt simpler on the surface. There were fewer conflicts, fewer raised voices, fewer moments of tension. Yet inside, something felt unsettled. I could not yet name it, but I felt a growing distance between what I sensed and what I was told was correct. Many of us were encouraged to value reason above feeling. We were taught that thinking carefully was more reliable than sensing deeply. Feelings were called childish or impractical. Inner knowing was dismissed as imagination. And so we learned to mistrust what we could not easily explain. When adults around us seemed certain and confident, we assumed they knew better. We believed that authority lived outside of us. This belief was comforting at first. It removed responsibility. It told us we did not need to know, we only needed to follow. Yet it also quietly weakened our connection to ourselves. Each time we were told that our feelings were wrong, exaggerated, or inconvenient, we learned to silence them. We learned to doubt our reactions. We learned to look for approval before acting. Over time, this became so familiar that it felt normal. We forgot there was another way. Mistakes played a powerful role in this disconnection. When we made a choice that led to discomfort or pain, we often decided the problem was not the situation, it was our listening. We concluded that our inner guidance could not be trusted. We overlook the truth that mistakes are part of learning, not proof of failure. Fear began to step in as a substitute for intuition. Fear learned to sound sensible. It spoke in calm, reasonable tones. It warned us to be careful, to avoid risk, to wait for certainty. Fear promised protection, but it demanded control, and control slowly replaced trust. I have noticed that fear does not create peace. It creates vigilance. It keeps the body alert, the breath shallow, the heart guarded. Intuition, on the other hand, brings calm even when the path is unclear. The difference is subtle, yet unmistakable when we learn to feel it again. The world often rewards those who ignore their inner voice in favor of expectation. We are praised for endurance, for compliance, for sacrifice. Rarely are we praised for listening inwardly, for honoring our feelings, or for trusting our own timing. And so the habit of self-doubt is reinforced again and again. Yet I want you to understand something important. The world did not teach you not to listen out of cruelty. It did so out of fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of difference, fear of what cannot be controlled. You absorbed this fear, but it does not belong to you. Your inner voice did not disappear during this time. It adapted. It learned to whisper instead of speak. It learned to wait for quiet moments late at night, in moments of stillness, in the body's subtle responses. It became more patient, not weaker. You may notice now that your inner voice often speaks after the mind has finished arguing. When the noise settles, clarity remains. This clarity has always been there. It was simply covered by urgency and expectation. I invite you to release the belief that you failed yourself by not listening sooner. You were doing the best you could with what you were taught. There is no blame here, only understanding, only compassion. As adults, we often continue to seek permission long after we no longer need it. We ask others what they think. We look for signs outside ourselves. We wait for certainty before acting. All of this comes from the same place, the belief that knowing lives elsewhere. But knowing has always lived within you. It lives in the pause before you answer, in the tightening when something is not right, in the relief when you choose what feels true. These are not accidents. They are guidance. Here is a gentle affirmation you may begin to hold as you continue this remembering. I am willing to trust my inner knowing again. This affirmation does not erase doubt. It creates space for trust to return. As you reflect on how the world taught you not to listen, allow yourself to feel tenderness rather than regret. You did not lose your way, you adapted. And now you are free to choose differently. Listening inward is not a rebellion against the world. It is a return to balance. When you listen to yourself, you do not disconnect from life, you align with it. And as this alignment begins to restore itself, you may notice that the inner voice grows clearer, not because it becomes louder, but because you are finally ready to hear it again. I have learned that the inner voice does not speak in sentences the way the mind does. It does not explain itself or defend its guidance. It does not argue for attention. Instead, it speaks through feeling, through sensation, through the quiet responses of the body and the heart. When I stopped expecting words, I began to hear it clearly. The inner voice is present long before thought arrives. It moves faster than reasoning, yet it is never rushed. It appears as a soft sense of ease or a subtle tightening. It shows itself as comfort or as quiet resistance. These sensations are not random. They are communication, gentle and precise. There is a calmness to true inner guidance. Even when it leads me toward change, it does not create panic. Fear brings urgency. Intuition brings steadiness. When I learned to feel the difference, I stopped confusing anxiety with knowing. Often, the body responds before the mind understands. I may feel my shoulders relax when something is right, or my stomach tighten when something is not. These responses happen naturally, without effort. The body does not lie. It simply responds to truth. For many years, I ignored these signals because they felt too subtle. I believed guidance should be dramatic or obvious. Yet the inner voice is quiet by design. It respects free will, it waits to be invited, and when it is welcomed, it speaks consistently and lovingly. I have noticed that the inner voice often arrives as a sense of relief. Even when the choice ahead is unfamiliar, there is a feeling of rightness. It feels like settling into alignment rather than forcing a decision. Relief is one of intuition's clearest signs. There are times when the inner voice asks me to pause rather than act. It may suggest waiting, resting, or listening longer. This can be uncomfortable for the mind, which prefers certainty. Yet when I honor the pause, clarity always follows. The inner voice does not pressure me to decide quickly. It understands timing. It knows when I am ready. When I rush past it, I often feel unsettled. When I follow it, even slowly, I feel supported. I want you to know that confusion does not mean the inner voice is absent. It means the mind is loud. When many thoughts compete for attention, guidance waits patiently beneath them. Stillness reveals what effort cannot. The language of the inner voice is often emotional before it is logical. I may feel drawn toward something without knowing why. I may feel discomfort without a clear reason. These feelings are invitations to listen more deeply, not signals to dismiss. Fear speaks in repetition. It repeats worries, warnings, and imagined outcomes. Intuition speaks once, quietly, and waits. When I feel chased by a thought, I know it is not guidance. When I feel calm, clarity, I pay attention. There is a softness to intuition. It does not shame or criticize. It never tells me I am wrong or inadequate. Even when it invites change, it does so with kindness. It speaks as a loving companion, not a judge. I have also learned that intuition often speaks after I have stopped seeking answers. When I release the need to figure everything out, insight appears naturally. It arrives in quiet moments, in stillness, in the body's response to truth. Sometimes the inner voice is felt as expansion. The chest opens, the breath deepens, there is space. Other times it is felt as contraction, a gentle closing that says, "Not this." Both are guidance. Neither requires explanation. I want to reassure you that intuition does not demand blind faith. It builds trust gradually. Each time you listen and respond, even in small ways, the connection strengthens. The inner voice grows clearer because you have shown you are willing to hear. You may notice that the inner voice often guides you toward kindness, toward yourself and others. It encourages honesty without cruelty. Rest without guilt, movement without force. These qualities are signs you are listening well. There were times when I mistook habit for intuition. Habit feels familiar but heavy. Intuition feels simple and light. Learning the difference takes patience. Be gentle with yourself as you practice. This is a relationship, not a skill. The inner voice does not disappear when ignored. It does not punish or withdraw. It simply waits. And when you return your attention inward, it responds immediately, as though no time has passed. I invite you now to begin noticing how your body responds throughout the day, without judgment, without analysis. Simply notice. This awareness alone strengthens intuition. Attention is an act of love. You may feel guidance when choosing what to say, where to go, when to rest. These small moments matter. They build trust. Intuition grows through daily listening, not dramatic decisions. Here is an affirmation you may hold gently as you deepen this awareness. I listen to my body and trust its wisdom. This affirmation invites cooperation rather than control. As you continue, you may notice that life feels less confusing, not because everything is clear, but because you are aligned. Alignment brings peace even when answers are still unfolding. The inner voice does not promise certainty, it promises honesty. It does not remove fear, it offers companionship. When you walk with it, you are never alone in your choices. There will be moments when the mind doubts what the body knows. When this happens, pause, breathe, return to sensation. The body will remind you gently. You do not need to interpret every signal perfectly. Listening itself is enough. The inner voice responds to willingness, not perfection. I want you to know that intuition is not something special given to a few. It is a natural function of being alive. You were born with it. You are remembering it now. As you listen more deeply, you may feel a growing sense of trust, not because life has changed, but because you are connected to yourself again. This connection is the foundation of all guidance. And as you continue forward, guided by sensation, calm, knowing, and inner steadiness, you will find that the inner voice becomes not something you seek, but something you live with quietly, faithfully, always. For a long time, I believed fear was keeping me safe. I listened to it carefully, thinking it was wisdom. Fear spoke quickly and confidently. It warned me of danger, of mistakes, of disappointment. And because it sounded serious and responsible, I trusted it. I did not realize that fear had quietly taken the place of my inner guidance. Fear often begins as protection. It rises when we are young and unsure, when the world feels unpredictable. It tells us to be careful, to avoid risk, to stay small. In those moments, fear feels helpful. But over time, fear can forget its original purpose and begin to lead rather than protect. I have learned that fear is loud because it is uncertain. It speaks in many words. It repeats itself. It presents many possible outcomes, most of them painful. Intuition, by contrast, is quiet because it is sure. It does not need to convince. It simply knows. When fear is in charge, the body feels tense. The breath shortens. The mind races ahead, searching for guarantees. Life begins to feel like something that must be managed rather than lived. I did not realize how exhausting this way of being had become until I began to loosen fear's grip. Fear often disguises itself as being sensible. It tells us we are being realistic, mature, or responsible. Yet responsibility without trust becomes control. And control is born from the belief that life cannot be trusted to support us. I noticed that when fear guided my choices, there was rarely peace afterward. Even if the outcome was acceptable, I felt drained. My body remained tense. Relief was temporary. Fear always found something else to worry about. Intuition, however, leaves a feeling of calm even when the path is uncertain. When I follow my inner guidance, I may still feel afraid, but fear is no longer in command. It becomes a feeling I carry, not a voice I obey. I want you to know that releasing fear's authority does not mean rejecting fear. Fear does not need to be pushed away or argued with. It softens when it is acknowledged and reassured. Fear wants safety, not dominance. When fear arises now, I speak to it kindly. I remind it that I am present, that I am listening inwardly, that I am not abandoning myself. This reassurance calms fear more effectively than resistance ever could. There were times when I believed that listening to fear was the same as being careful. Now I understand that true care comes from alignment, not avoidance. Intuition does not lead us into harm, it leads us into honesty. Fear often asks, what if something goes wrong? Intuition asks, what feels true? These questions lead to very different lives. One is lived in anticipation. The other is lived in presence. When I began allowing intuition to guide, while fear remained present but unempowered, something shifted. Decisions felt clearer. My body relaxed. I no longer needed certainty to move forward, only inner alignment. I have learned that fear cannot be silenced by force. It quiets naturally when trust grows. Each time I listen to my inner voice and respond with care, fear learns that it does not need to shout. You may notice that fear becomes strongest when you are about to choose yourself. Fear resists change, even gentle change. It prefers the familiar, even when the familiar is uncomfortable. This does not mean you are wrong, it means you are growing. Releasing fear's authority is a gradual process. It happens in moments when you pause instead of panic, when you listen inward instead of reacting outward, when you choose kindness over urgency. I invite you to notice how fear feels in your body, not to analyze it, but to feel it. Fear is energy. When it is felt without judgment, it moves. When it is obeyed without question, it stays. Here is a gentle affirmation you may hold as fear arises. I allow fear to be present, and I choose to listen to my inner wisdom. This affirmation restores balance. It does not deny fear, it removes its control. You may still feel afraid at times. This is natural. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to listen inwardly, even when fear speaks loudly. As fear releases its authority, you may feel a new spaciousness inside. Decisions feel less heavy. The future feels less threatening. You move with greater ease because you are no longer bracing yourself against life. Trust grows quietly. It does not announce itself, it shows itself in your breath, your posture, your willingness to pause. These are signs that fear is no longer leading. I want you to know that you are not meant to live governed by fear. Fear was never meant to be your guide. It was meant to alert you, not direct you. Intuition is your true guide, steady and loving. As you continue listening inward, fear will continue to soften. Not because you defeated it, but because you no longer need it to lead. And in this gentle rebalancing, you will discover that life feels less like a problem to solve and more like a path you are supported in walking, one calm, honest step at a time. Learning to trust myself again did not happen in a single moment of courage. It happened quietly, through small choices made with care. Trust does not return through grand promises. It returns when I listen and respond again and again in ordinary moments. For a long time, I believed trust required certainty. I thought I needed to know the outcome before I could feel safe choosing. Yet intuition does not offer guarantees, it offers guidance. And guidance asks for presence, not perfection. I began by noticing when my body relaxed, when I felt relief after choosing honesty, when I felt lighter after resting instead of pushing. These moments taught me that my inner knowing was reliable, not dramatic, reliable. Trust grows when I keep small promises to myself, when I rest, when I'm tired, when I speak gently instead of critically, when I pause instead of rushing. Each response tells my inner self, I am listening, and being listened to restores trust naturally. There were times when I doubted myself even as I listened. Doubt did not mean failure. It meant I was learning something new. I allowed doubt to exist without letting it cancel my knowing. Over time, doubt softened. I noticed that self-trust feels different from confidence. Confidence can be loud. Self-trust is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It feels like steadiness, like being supported from within. When I trusted myself, even in small ways, my body responded. My shoulders lowered, my breath deepened, the constant vigilance eased. These changes were subtle, but they were real. The body recognizes safety quickly. I learned that mistakes do not destroy self-trust unless I use them as punishment. When I met mistakes with compassion instead of blame, trust remained intact. I reminded myself that learning includes missteps. Growth is not linear. There were moments when following my inner guidance led to uncertainty, yet even then I felt aligned. Alignment brought peace, even when the future was unclear. This taught me that peace comes from honesty, not certainty. I want you to know that self-trust does not require believing you will always choose correctly. It requires believing you will listen kindly, whatever happens. This belief is deeply healing. Each time I listened and responded, intuition grew clearer. Not louder, clearer. It became easier to recognize because I had shown I was willing to hear it. Trust strengthens through relationship, not effort. There were days when I forgot to listen, when I rushed, when I defaulted to old habits. When this happened, I did not scold myself. I simply noticed and returned. Trust rebuilds quickly when there is no punishment. I began speaking affirmations that supported trust gently, without pressure. Words like, I trust myself to listen and learn. I am safe to follow my inner guidance. These words softened my inner world. Repetition created familiarity. Familiarity created safety. I noticed that when I trusted myself, I no longer needed as much reassurance from others. I listened more clearly. I sought guidance from within before asking outward. This did not isolate me, it grounded me. Self-trust also changed how I moved through decisions. I allowed myself time, I honored pauses, I stopped forcing answers. Clarity came naturally when I stopped demanding it. I realized that trusting myself did not mean rejecting advice. It meant filtering advice through my own knowing. I listened inwardly first. Then I listened outwardly. This order restored balance. The more I trusted myself, the more I felt supported by life. Not because life changed, but because I was aligned. Alignment feels like cooperation with life rather than resistance. I want to reassure you that self-trust does not require bravery. It requires kindness, it requires patience. It requires allowing yourself to be human. Each time you choose to listen inwardly, even briefly, you strengthen trust. Each time you respond with care, you reinforce safety. These moments accumulate quietly, powerfully. Here is an affirmation you may return to often as trust grows. I trust myself, and I am supported by life. Let these words settle gently. They are reminders, not demands. As self-trust deepens, fear loses influence. Decisions feel less heavy, you move with greater ease. Not because everything is clear, but because you are aligned with yourself. Learning to trust yourself again is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming present. When you are present, guidance is always available. And as this trust continues to grow, you will find that you no longer need to search for answers. You listen, you feel, you respond. And that is enough. There comes a gentle shift when listening inward is no longer something I remember to do, but something that happens naturally. I do not announce it to myself. I simply notice that I pause more often. I breathe before I answer. I feel before I decide. Guidance begins to live inside ordinary moments. Living guided from within does not mean life becomes quiet or predictable. It means I no longer rush to escape discomfort. When something feels uncertain, I stay present with it. I trust that clarity unfolds through patience rather than force. I notice that my body becomes my first reference point. Before words, before plans, before explanations, there is a feeling. When something is aligned, my body softens. When something is not, there is resistance. These signals are gentle yet dependable. I no longer need to convince myself that a choice is right. When it is guided from within, there is no inner argument. Even if fear is present, it does not dominate. There is a sense of quiet agreement inside, a feeling of moving with myself rather than against myself. Daily life begins to feel more spacious. I move more slowly. Not because I lack energy, but because I am present. I notice when I am tired and allow rest. I notice when I am full and stop. These small acts of listening create a deep sense of respect. Relationships change when I live guided from within. I listen more clearly to others because I'm listening to myself. I speak more honestly without needing to defend my truth. I allow differences without abandoning myself. This balance brings peace. I find that I no longer explain my choices as much. When I am aligned, I feel no need to justify. I trust that what is right for me does not require permission. This trust feels steady, not defiant. Living guided from within teaches me to honor timing. Some things ask for action, others ask for waiting. I have learned that waiting is not avoidance when it comes from intuition. It is preparation. Life arranges itself when I allow it. There are moments when the mind still wants certainty. When this happens, I return to the body. I breathe. I feel my feet on the ground. Presence brings clarity more reliably than thought ever did. I notice that intuition often guides me toward simplicity, toward fewer commitments, toward clearer boundaries, toward kindness over urgency. These choices do not shrink my life, they make it fuller. When challenges arise, I no longer rush to fix them. I listen inwardly first. Often, the response is softer than expected. A pause, a kind word, a gentle adjustment. These responses create harmony rather than struggle. Living guided from within does not separate me from the world. It connects me more deeply. I am less reactive, more responsive. I meet life where it is instead of fighting where it has been. I trust that when I am aligned, life supports me. Support does not always arrive as ease, but it arrives as steadiness. I feel carried rather than pushed. This feeling is deeply reassuring. I have learned that intuition does not require constant attention. It does not disappear when I am busy. It remains present, ready to guide the moment I listen. This reliability builds deep trust. There are days when guidance feels clear and days when it feels subtle. Both are part of living. I no longer judge myself for uncertainty. Uncertainty is simply a pause between movements. Here is an affirmation I return to often as I live this way. I allow my inner wisdom to guide me gently. These words remind me that guidance does not demand effort. It responds to openness. Living guided from within brings a sense of quiet companionship. I am not alone with my choices. I walk with myself. This companionship reduces fear naturally. I notice that when I listen inwardly, I am less influenced by urgency around me. I move at my own pace. I choose from alignment rather than pressure. This steadiness affects everything. Even when I make decisions that others do not understand, I remain calm. Inner agreement matters more than external approval. This calm is not withdrawal, it is self-respect. I trust now that my inner voice will guide me moment by moment. I do not need to see the whole path, I only need to listen to the next step. The path reveals itself through movement. As I continue living this way, life feels less like a series of problems to solve and more like a relationship to honor. I participate rather than manage. I listen rather than control. Living guided from within is not dramatic. It is deeply peaceful. It feels like cooperation with life itself. And as this way of living settles into me, I realize that guidance was never something I needed to seek. It was always something I needed to allow. There is a quiet knowing that settles in when I no longer question whether I am allowed to trust myself. It is not excitement or certainty, it is peace. I feel it in my body as a gentle steadiness, a sense of being supported from within. I realize that I am no longer searching for guidance, I am living inside it. Coming home to trust does not feel like arriving somewhere new. It feels like remembering something very old, something familiar, something that never truly left. The inner voice I once doubted has been with me all along, patient and unwavering, waiting for me to return my attention inward. I notice now that I do not need to ask as many questions. When I pause, the answer is already present as a feeling, a direction, a sense of rightness. I no longer need to convince myself. I simply listen and move gently forward. Trust shows itself in the way I breathe. My breath is fuller. It moves naturally without effort. The body relaxes when it knows it will be listened to. The nervous urgency that once drove my choices has softened into presence. I understand now that trusting myself does not mean I will never feel unsure. It means that when uncertainty arises, I stay with myself instead of abandoning myself. I do not rush to escape discomfort. I allow it to move through me with patience. There is a deep kindness in this way of being. I speak to myself more gently. I allow mistakes without punishment. I treat confusion as a pause rather than a problem. This kindness creates safety, and safety allows trust to deepen naturally. Coming home to trust also changes how I experience time. I no longer feel as rushed. I am less concerned with keeping up or catching up. I move at the pace of my own inner rhythm. Life feels less demanding when I am aligned. I notice that decisions no longer feel heavy. Even when they involve change, there is a sense of cooperation rather than struggle. I am not forcing life to bend to my will. I am listening and responding. This feels like partnership. There is a new simplicity in my choices. I am guided toward what nourishes rather than what impresses, toward what feels true rather than what looks correct. This simplicity is deeply freeing. I realize now that the inner voice never asked me to be fearless. It only asks me to be present. Fear loses its power when it is not in charge. When trust leads, fear becomes a feeling rather than a decision maker. As trust settles, I feel a sense of belonging that does not depend on anyone else's approval. I belong to myself. This belonging is quiet, steady, and deeply comforting. It feels like standing on solid ground after a long time of bracing. I want you to know that this trust is not fragile. It does not disappear when life feels challenging. It strengthens when you return to yourself again and again. Each return deepens the bond. There are moments now when I feel guided without effort. A gentle nudge to rest, a quiet knowing to speak, a sense of timing that feels natural. These moments remind me that guidance is always present. I no longer need to analyze my intuition. I experience it. I feel it in my body. I recognize it by the peace it brings, even when the path is still unfolding. Trust also brings forgiveness. I forgive myself for the years I doubted my knowing. I understand now that doubt was learned, not chosen, and I release it with compassion. As I live from this place, life feels more responsive. Opportunities appear naturally. Relationships align or fall away without struggle. I trust that what belongs with me will remain. Here is an affirmation I carry with me now, not as practice, but as truth. I trust myself, and life supports me. These words feel settled, not aspirational. They describe how life feels when I am aligned. Coming home to trust means I no longer leave myself behind to feel safe. I bring my whole self into each moment. I listen inwardly before acting outwardly. This creates harmony rather than conflict. I understand now that the inner voice was never asking me to be someone else. It was always guiding me back to who I am. Listening did not change me, it revealed me. There is a quiet gratitude that arises when I recognize this. Gratitude for my body, gratitude for my patience, gratitude for the inner guidance that never gave up on me. I move forward now without urgency. I do not need to rush toward the future. I trust that each step will reveal the next. Presence is enough. If there are days when I forget, I return gently. There is no punishment for forgetting. There is only remembering again. Trust grows through repetition and kindness. I want to leave you with this knowing. You were never disconnected from your inner voice. You were only listening elsewhere. And now you are listening again. This listening is not effort. it is allowance. This trust is not bravery, it is belonging. This guidance is not something you earn, it is who you are. And as you continue walking forward, listening inwardly, trusting gently, you will find that life meets you with the same kindness you offer yourself. You are home now. Now that you have listened, now that you have remembered, I want to invite you to remain exactly where you are for a moment. There is nothing you need to understand further, nothing you need to decide. Healing often happens in the pause after insight, when the body and the heart have time to settle into what has been recognized. Listening to your inner voice is not a moment you complete. It is a relationship you return to. Some days it feels clear and close. Other days it may feel distant or quiet. Both are part of living. The inner voice does not measure your worth by how often you hear it. It remains loving and present regardless. I want to remind you that your inner knowing does not leave when you are busy, distracted, or uncertain. It does not withdraw when you forget to listen. It waits patiently, without judgment. The moment you turn inward again, it is there. You may notice now that your life feels a little quieter inside, not empty, peaceful. The constant searching softens. The need for reassurance eases. You may still ask questions, but they come from curiosity rather than fear. This is a sign that trust is settling. There is a deep comfort in knowing that you do not have to force clarity. Clarity arrives naturally when you are present with yourself. When you stop pushing answers away or pulling them towards you, they reveal themselves in their own time. I have learned that alignment feels like simplicity. It does not require constant attention. It shows itself in how the body relaxes, how the breath deepens, how decisions feel less heavy. Alignment is often quiet and easy to overlook, yet deeply nourishing. You may find that your inner voice now speaks most clearly when you are gentle with yourself. Harshness creates noise, kindness creates space. When you soften, you hear more. There may still be moments when fear returns. Fear is part of being human. When it appears, do not rush to silence it. Listen inwardly instead. Ask what feels true beneath the fear. Intuition is always calmer than fear, even when it asks for change. I want you to trust that you do not need to get this right. Listening is not a skill to master. It is a willingness to notice. Each moment of noticing strengthens the connection. Each act of kindness toward yourself deepens trust. Your inner voice will guide you in small ways most often. When to rest, when to speak, when to wait, when to move forward gently. These small guidances shape a life of peace more than dramatic decisions ever could. As you continue living, allow yourself to move slowly. The pace of healing is the pace of love. There is no hurry, there is no race. You are exactly where you need to be. You may notice that your body feels safer now, less braced, less tense. This is the body learning that it will be listened to. Safety restores naturally when the inner voice is honored. I encourage you to continue speaking kindly to yourself, especially when you feel unsure. The way you speak inwardly shapes your experience of life. Gentle words create gentle living. You may return often to simple affirmations, spoken softly, without force. I listen to myself with love. I trust my inner guidance. I am safe to be who I am. I allow life to support me. Let these words be companions, not instructions. There will be days when you feel deeply connected to yourself and days when you feel distant. When distance appears, do not judge it. Distance is simply a reminder to return. The return is always available. I want you to know that you are not meant to live disconnected from your own wisdom. You are meant to live in cooperation with it. This cooperation creates ease. It creates peace. It creates a sense of being carried rather than pushed. As trust deepens, you may notice that your need for approval fades. You no longer look outward as often for permission. You listen inwardly first. This does not isolate you, it anchors you. Your inner voice will never rush you. It respects your timing, it understands your fears, it waits until you are ready. Trust that you cannot miss what belongs to you when you are listening inwardly. If you ever feel lost again, return to the body, return to the breath, return to the feeling of being present. Guidance lives in the present moment, not in analysis. I want to speak gently to the part of you that may still doubt. Doubt does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are learning to trust something that was once set aside. Doubt softens when it is not fought. There is a quiet joy in living guided from within. It is not excitement, it is steadiness. It is knowing that you are not alone with your choices. You walk with yourself now. As you continue, life may still bring challenges. When it does, meet them from alignment rather than urgency. Listen inwardly before responding outwardly. This one pause can change everything. I want you to remember that your inner voice is not asking you to become someone new. It is guiding you to live as who you already are. Listening does not change your nature, it reveals it. You may feel gratitude arise naturally as you live this way. Gratitude for your body, gratitude for your patience, gratitude for the wisdom that never abandoned you, even when you doubted it. Let this gratitude settle without effort. Gratitude is a sign of alignment, not a requirement. There is nothing you need to hold tightly now. Trust does not need protection. It grows through allowance. When you allow yourself to be present, trust is already there. If you forget everything else, remember this: you are safe to listen inwardly. You are allowed to trust yourself. You are supported by life when you support yourself. These truths do not fade. They remain steady, just like your inner voice. Stay gently connected, stay patient, stay present. Life loves you. And your inner knowing is always guiding you home. I want to speak to you now about the days that come after insight, the days that feel ordinary, the days when nothing seems especially clear or dramatic. These are not empty days. These are the days when trust takes root quietly, without effort, becoming part of how you live rather than something you practice. For a long time, you may have believed that guidance only appears in moments of decision or crisis, yet your inner voice is present even when nothing seems to be happening. It guides you in how you speak to yourself, how you move through the day, how you respond to small discomforts and quiet joys. Walking gently with yourself means you no longer rush to correct your experience. If you feel tired, you notice. If you feel unsure, you pause. If you feel content, you allow it. You stop questioning whether each feeling is acceptable. This acceptance creates safety, and safety allows wisdom to surface naturally. You may notice now that you do not push yourself as hard, not because you have given up, but because you are listening. You have learned that pushing was never the same as caring. True care feels soft and steady, not demanding or urgent. There is a new relationship forming between you and time. You no longer feel chased by it. You allow moments to unfold without constantly evaluating them. When you slow down, you discover that clarity often arrives without being summoned. I have learned that the inner voice speaks most clearly when I am not trying to hear it. When I am present, when I am kind, when I am honest, guidance flows naturally. It feels less like instruction and more like companionship. There may still be moments when old habits return. You may rush, doubt, or overthink. When this happens, do not turn against yourself. Turning against yourself is the only true interruption of guidance. Kindness restores connection immediately. You are learning now that you do not need to be vigilant to be safe. Safety grows from consistency, not control. Each time you respond to yourself with patience, your system learns that it is okay to relax. Walking gently with yourself also means allowing change to happen gradually. You do not need to remake your life overnight. Trust unfolds through small, repeated choices. Choices to rest, to speak honestly, to wait when waiting feels right. You may notice that you are less reactive to the world around you. You do not absorb others' urgency as easily. You listen, but you do not rush to respond. This pause is not distance, it is presence. Your inner voice often guides you toward balance. Balance between doing and resting, between giving and receiving, between speaking and listening. When balance returns, life feels more harmonious without effort. I want you to know that inner guidance is not something you must maintain. It does not disappear if you forget about it. It is part of you, as natural as breathing. When you return your attention inward, it is already there. You may find that your thoughts are kinder now, not because you force them to be positive, but because you no longer allow harshness to dominate. The tone of your inner world shapes the quality of your outer life. There is a deep relief in no longer feeling that you must justify your pace. You move as you need to move. You rest as you need to rest. You trust that this rhythm is wise, even if it differs from others. Walking gently with yourself means you stop treating life as something to endure. You participate more fully. You notice small pleasures. You allow moments of peace to exist without suspicion. You may return often to simple reminders, spoken softly when needed. I am listening. I am allowed to go slowly. I trust myself to know. Let these words feel familiar, not instructional. There will be times when guidance feels quiet. Quiet does not mean absent. Quiet often means integration. When things are settling, there is less to say. Trust the quiet. I want to reassure you that you cannot lose your way when you are willing to return. No matter how far you feel you have drifted, one moment of presence brings you back. As you continue walking with yourself, you may feel a growing steadiness. You are less pulled by fear, less swayed by urgency, more grounded in your own experience. This steadiness is the fruit of listening. You are not required to always know what comes next. Guidance reveals itself step by step. When you trust the step you are on, the next one appears naturally. Walking gently with yourself is not about becoming passive. It is about becoming aligned. Aligned action feels calm, even when it is decisive. It does not drain you, it supports you. I want you to feel how much permission exists here. Permission to pause, permission to feel, permission to not know, permission to trust that you are being guided even when the path is not fully visible. You are not behind, you are not late. You are exactly where your inner voice can reach you. And as you continue walking forward slowly, kindly, listening inwardly, you may discover that guidance is no longer something you seek in moments of doubt. It is something you live with quietly, faithfully, every day. Stay gentle, stay present. Stay with yourself. Life loves you. And you are learning more deeply each day to walk in that love. I want to speak to you now about the moments when you do not feel clear, when guidance feels distant. When nothing seems to be unfolding in a way you can name, these moments are not signs that you are disconnected. They are part of living. They are spaces where trust deepens quietly. There was a time when I believed I needed to feel certain in order to move forward. I thought clarity had to arrive before peace could exist. Now I understand that peace does not wait for certainty. Peace grows when I allow myself to be exactly where I am. You may notice that some days you feel deeply aligned and other days you feel unsure or tender. This does not mean you have lost your way. It means you are human. Healing does not remove feeling, it allows feeling to move without judgment. Your inner voice does not require you to feel confident at all times. It meets you in uncertainty just as faithfully as it meets you in clarity. Guidance does not disappear when you feel lost. It simply becomes quieter, inviting you to slow down rather than push ahead. I have learned that there is great wisdom in not knowing. Not knowing invites listening. Not knowing allows space for something new to emerge. When I stop forcing answers, I discover that life has its own gentle timing. There may be moments when you wish your inner voice would speak more clearly. When this happens, offer yourself patience rather than pressure. Pressure creates noise, patience creates openness. Guidance flows more easily when you are kind to yourself. Allowing life to meet you where you are means you stop trying to rush your own unfolding. You stop comparing your pace to anyone else's. You stop measuring progress by visible outcomes. Instead, you listen for how your body feels, how your breath moves, how your heart responds. You may find that your inner world feels softer now. Softer thoughts, softer expectations, softer self-talk. This softness is not weakness. It is strength that no longer needs armor. There is a quiet courage in allowing yourself to feel uncertain without abandoning yourself, in staying present even when answers are not immediate. This courage does not announce itself, it simply stays. You may notice that your relationship with fear has changed. Fear may still appear, but it does not command the same attention. You do not rush to obey it or silence it. You allow it to exist while listening inwardly for what feels true. I want you to know that you are not required to understand everything that is happening in your life. Understanding often comes later, after experience has settled. Trust allows you to move forward without needing explanations. There is a great kindness in allowing yourself to rest in moments that feel unresolved. Rest does not delay healing, it supports it. The body integrates what the mind does not yet understand. You may find comfort in returning to simple grounding when things feel unclear. Feeling your feet on the ground, placing a hand on your heart, breathing slowly. These small acts reconnect you to the present moment where guidance always lives. I encourage you to speak gently to yourself when you feel uncertain. The way you respond inwardly during these moments teaches your system whether it is safe to pause or whether it must brace itself. Kindness creates safety. There is no mistake in taking your time. Life does not punish slowness. Often, slowness allows wisdom to catch up with experience. When you allow yourself to move gently, you move with life rather than against it. You may notice that you are less interested in forcing change now. You allow change to arise naturally. This does not mean you are passive. It means you are aligned. Aligned change feels cooperative, not exhausting. Allowing life to meet you where you are also means allowing yourself to be imperfect. You will forget to listen sometimes. You will rush. You will doubt. When this happens, return without judgment. The return is always enough. I want to remind you that your inner voice does not keep score. It does not track how often you listen or how well you follow. It simply remains present, ready to guide the moment you are willing to feel. There is a deep relief in realizing that you do not need to hold everything together. Life is capable of holding you. When you soften into that truth, something inside finally rests. You may carry with you a few gentle reminders, not as rules, but as reassurance. I am allowed to not know. I am safe to go slowly. I trust myself to listen. I allow life to support me. Let these words be soft companions. As you continue living, trust that guidance will appear when it is needed, not before, not after, exactly when you are ready to receive it. This timing is not something you must manage. You are not behind. You are not missing anything essential. You are exactly where your inner voice can reach you most clearly. Allow life to meet you here. Allow yourself to stay. Allow trust to deepen quietly. You are guided, you are supported, and you are never alone within yourself. I want to speak to you now about what happens when listening inward no longer feels like something you are practicing. It becomes something you are living. You may not notice the moment this happens. There is no clear beginning. One day, you simply realize that you are kinder to yourself without trying. You begin to notice that your inner world feels less crowded. Thoughts still come, but they do not pull you as strongly. Feelings still arise, but they are not alarming. There is space now. And in that space, your inner voice moves freely. When listening becomes natural, you no longer strain to hear guidance. You feel it. It is present in how your body responds, in how your breath settles, in how your heart opens or closes. This listening is effortless because it is aligned with who you truly are. You may notice that you stop questioning yourself as often, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust that answers will come when they are needed. This trust creates ease. Ease creates clarity. Clarity creates peace. There is a deep comfort in realizing that you do not need to monitor your inner state constantly. Listening does not require vigilance. It requires presence. Presence arrives when you stop pushing yourself away. I have learned that when I am gentle with myself, guidance is immediate. When I am harsh, guidance retreats into quiet patience. Not as punishment, but as protection. The inner voice speaks most clearly in an atmosphere of kindness. You may feel that your decisions now come from a calmer place. You are less reactive, less hurried. You allow yourself to feel before responding. This does not slow your life, it steadies it. Letting inner listening become natural means you no longer doubt your right to pause. You allow silence. You allow rest. You allow yourself to not know. In these allowances, wisdom settles. There may still be days when you feel unsure. On those days, you do not abandon yourself. You stay. Staying is the deepest form of listening. When you stay, guidance does not need to speak loudly. Your presence is enough. You may notice that your body feels more cooperative now, less tense, less guarded. The body responds when it knows it will be heard. It no longer needs to send strong signals when gentle ones are respected. Listening inward also changes how you move through the world. You are less concerned with appearances, less focused on doing things the right way. You care more about what feels true than what looks correct. This does not make you careless. It makes you honest. Honesty brings alignment. Alignment brings peace. You may find that your inner dialogue has softened into encouragement rather than correction. You guide yourself kindly now. This kindness teaches your nervous system that it is safe to relax. There is a quiet confidence that grows from this way of living. Not confidence based on achievement, but confidence based on presence. You trust yourself because you stay with yourself. You may no longer seek reassurance as urgently. When uncertainty arises, you breathe, you feel, you wait. The next step reveals itself naturally. Guidance unfolds in its own time. I want you to know that inner listening does not disappear during difficult moments. It becomes even more important. When life feels challenging, listening inward provides steadiness rather than answers. Steadiness is often what is needed most. Letting listening become natural also means allowing yourself to change gradually. You do not need to become someone else overnight. Healing integrates quietly, like roots growing beneath the surface. You may feel drawn to simplicity now, fewer explanations, fewer justifications, fewer demands. This simplicity is not emptiness, it is clarity. I encourage you to trust this natural unfolding. You are not losing momentum, you are finding rhythm. Rhythm supports life far more deeply than urgency ever could. If you ever feel disconnected again, return to something simple: your breath, your body, your kindness. Listening lives there, always. You may return to gentle affirmations when needed, not as effort, but as reassurance. I am listening. I trust myself. I am safe to be present. Let these words feel familiar, not instructional. You do not need to hold on to this awareness tightly. Awareness does not leave. It softens when it is trusted. Trust allows listening to become part of who you are. As you continue living, notice how often you pause now without forcing it. Notice how often you choose kindness instinctively. These are signs that inner listening has become your natural way. There is nothing you need to complete, nothing you need to prove. You are already living from alignment. Allow this way of being to continue unfolding gently. Allow yourself to live with trust rather than effort. Allow listening to remain a quiet companion in your life. You are guided, you are supported, and you are deeply at home within yourself.